So I recently finished watching Kevin's video where he was talking about kids shows from back in the day that low-key were not for kids, bro. Like, some of these shows went from happy-go-lucky to straight up horrific in the span of a couple episodes. Like, you got your Adventure Times, your Gravity Falls, your Courage the Cowardly Dogs, but I feel like there is one cartoon that bro did not mention that I feel like really deserved a mention in that video. What, in my opinion, is actually one of the most disturbing cartoons from childhood, if you ask me. And if you couldn't already tell from the title, that's right. It's Steven Motherfucking Universe. Now, since this show doesn't normally come up in this conversation, I feel like there are some of you in the comments already talking about how, oh, what are you talking about? Steven Universe was calm, bro. Steven Universe was chill. Ain't nothing wrong with Steven Universe. My guy, I'ma hold your hand when I say this. This is one of the most terrifying shows in Cartoon Network history when you actually look back on the episodes that were airing. And for those of you who still don't believe me, I have gathered 3 of the most disturbing episodes that I can remember from this show. And trust me, there are a lot more than just 3 that are worthy of discussion. But just for the sake of not keeping this video too long, I'ma just limit it to 3. But before I get into discussing the episodes, I'm gonna ask y'all a favor to slap the like button on the ass for me, leave a comment or 2 about how you feel about the video, and let me know what else you want me to talk about. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So the very first episode we'll be talking about is called Frybo. And for those of you who watched this episode back in the day, you guys know exactly what episode this is and why it is on this list. So the episode starts off with Steven trying to find his pants. And then he runs into Pearl, who is also searching for a missing gem shard. Make note of what these gem shards are because they're going to be very important when I'm talking about the other 2 episodes. And for those of you who do not know what gem shards are already, they are basically broken pieces of already killed gems. Yes, in this show, to kill a gem, you shatter it to pieces. So these gem shards are quite literally the pieces of fallen gems.
So Pearl is trying to find the missing gem shard because if it gets in contact with any clothing, it can actually possess the clothing because a part of the gem's consciousness is still remnant inside of the gem shard.
We cool? We up to speed?
No, nigga!
Alright, bet. So Steven ends up finding the missing gem shard inside of his pants. But since Pearl isn't around for him to give it to her, he takes it on a stroll on the road. Don't ask me why he didn't just leave it on the f***ing table. He then runs into his friend Petey, who says he's tired of wearing this sweaty-ass Frybo costume for his job. And then guess what Steven's bright idea was? That's right. He puts the gem shard inside of the costume. And then this thing starts rolling around like a oh my god, no, just no. Kill it with fire! They then leave this abomination to take care of the job for Petey, and not even 10 minutes later, they check back on the thing, and it's already terrorizing people! Like, we literally see tentacles spawn out of the doorway and drag niggas back inside! Yeah, I'm sorry, but if it was me looking at this shit, yeah, I'm turning the fuck around. I have no facilities to deal with whatever the hell is inside that building. So we take a look at what's going on inside, and what we see is this thing force-feeding people fries. Now, I want to take a second to finally address the major element that made this thing actually terrifying to me. Why in the fuck does this thing have veins? Like, the veins on this thing make this 10 times more disturbing. Did the people that made this episode just want to traumatize me as a child? Why does this thing have veins, bro? Why? And if the veins weren't enough, they have this thing out here sounding like a xenomorph in this show. Like, I am not even kidding. Go and watch this episode and you will realize what I'm talking about. The sounds this thing was making was absolutely unsettling. So then Pearl shows up and jabs the thing with her spear, but then it spews a geyser force amount of ketchup in Pearl's face. And they low-key had to specify that this shit was ketchup because, bro, without the context, this literally could be passed off as blood. And the fact that this thing has more veins than my forehead while solo queuing competitive in Marvel Rivals makes it even worse. So then Steven gets bare booty naked. Yes, kids show by the way. Before sending all of his clothes to attack the Fry costume. And low-key, they kinda make light work of him. Then Steven gets on top of the thing, still bare booty naked by the way, and rips the shard out of its mouth. And right after this, they did what any sane person would have done. Burn that shit and never look back. And yeah, that was the end of the attack of the Frybo costume possessed by a gem shard that probably belonged to Jason Voorhees. And if I'm being perfectly honest, this is nothing compared to the episode I'm about to talk about next. Because this episode was still just comedic for the most part, nothing too serious, right? Well, we're about to discuss just how dark the concept of gem shards in this show actually could get. And trust me when I say, it ain't a pretty sight. The next episode on this list is called Keeping It Together. Now in this episode, Steven and the gems are still trying to figure out what the homeworld gems are trying to do to Earth. And so they decide to start investigating the kindergarten where they run into Peridot. Now Peridot is a gem from homeworld who's trying to carry out operations from the higher ups on Earth. So the crystal gems try to attack her, but she ends up getting away. But Garnet and Steven, however, notice that she came from a very suspiciously hidden room on the kindergarten that they didn't decide to investigate. And down there they find several tubes coming out of the walls and on the floor. But then the tubes start moving. And this is where this shit goes all the way left into horror flick. Because we then see amalgamated limbs coming out of the tubes. And when Garnet poofs them, we see that these things are actually gem shards that have been fused together. Oh my Lanta. These people took the gem shards of shattered gems and fused them together to experiment on. Like, how messed up do you have to be to do some shit like this? Oh, but it gets worse. We then see another big-ass gem mutant pop out of one of the tubes, and as it's forming, you can literally see the outlines of all the dead gems that were fused together to make this thing. Like, this shit was so unsettling. The only words Garnet could utter in the moment were at the mere sight of this thing. Like, let that sink in. Garnet, the most calm, cool, and collected crystal gem, is literally frozen up seeing this shit. Like, it got to a point where she was so terrified she was about to literally come undone. But luckily she remembered that she is still her, locked the fuck in, and still made light work of this thing. But then Garnet makes a realization that makes this scene all the more disturbing. She realizes that these are not just any shattered gems. These are actually the shattered pieces of gems that she herself fought alongside in the war against Homeworld that they couldn't find. Homeworld decided to punish these gems for rebelling by not just shattering them, but collected their shattered pieces after the war to conduct experiments on. Nah, I need y'all to think about it like this. Like, for a gem like Garnet, this is like your friends go missing for years upon years, and when you finally find them, you see their body parts have been dismembered and sewn together to create fucking mutants. Like, that genuinely has to be the most fucked thing I have ever seen depicted in a cartoon. And as a kid, I don't think I fully understood just how unsettling this was. I'm pretty sure I just saw this and was just genuinely creeped out by the aura and the energy of this entire episode. But looking back, this was genuinely one of the most disturbing things depicted in a cartoon. And the crazy part is, we're not done with the list, because there is still one last episode that I want to discuss for this video. The next episode on this list is called Nightmare Hospital, and just the title alone is already screaming scuffed. So Steven follows Connie over to her house and he says that she can borrow his mother's sword in order to continue her sword training. But Connie's mother finds the sword in their house and she is obviously not very happy about this. A few seconds later, she gets a call from work saying how they have some very strange patients that they just checked in. So she decides to take the sword with her to the hospital and says she'll punish Connie later. So when Connie and Steven follow her to the hospital to get the sword back, they find that the hospital has a very eerie vibe to it all of a sudden. And they find Connie's mom in the middle of checking on one of the patients. And when she checks this thing's vitals, she discovers that this motherfucker has no heartbeat. Connie's mom then catches the two trying to steal the sword back, and they hear a noise coming from the hallway. And when they go to see what it was, we see that it was actually another one of the gem mutants. Now I want it to be very clearly understood. Niggas saw this shit on the street and thought it was a human being. So the thing rushes at them and tries to attack them, and then the other patient starts freaking out in the bed. Except if you couldn't already figure it out, this thing is also another gem mutant. And I'm sorry, I need to address this. How the fuck do you see this thing and think it's a human being, bro? I need to understand the mentality behind this shit. So while they're trying to get away from these monsters, it starts climbing on the ceiling after them. No, bro, why? As if this thing wasn't creepy enough. But then they get surrounded and Connie's trying to convince her mom to give her the sword so they can fight. But this bitch is seeing all this unfold and still doesn't want to hand over the sword. Like, bro, do you want to survive? But eventually Connie gets the sword out and they start putting belt to ass on these things. Made quick work of them in 10 seconds easy. And I'm not gonna lie, Connie's a better person than me because my instincts would have just turned me into a Dead by Daylight survivor. Would have seen me juking the fuck out of these things like prime Meg Thomas. But yeah, those were 3 of what I remember to be the most disturbing episodes from this show. And overall, trust me, Personally, I think Steven Universe is one of the best written stories in Cartoon Network history. But you see that part about it being a kids show? Yeah, I don't know about all that, bruh.